All right, my friends, how are you today? Aaron here bringing you some honest astrology about the full moon in Scorpio that we're going to be having on May 1st, 2026 at about 1:20 p.m. this Friday afternoon. So we're going to have the sun in Taurus, and across the way we have the moon in Scorpio. Let me show you the chart and get right into it here. All right. Here we've got our sun at 11 degrees, 20 space minutes of Taurus, and our moon 11 degrees, 20 space minutes of Scorpio. Our major stacked players are here in Aries. This is about self. This is a major reset and us getting the opportunity to look at life truly through our perspective of our lens, and you are the one that is responsible for your life and how you choose to live it, how you choose to perceive this world. It's up to nobody else. Anybody can paint you the picture of what the world looks like, but ultimately it is up to you to decide what life is and how you want to live it, what you find to be beautiful. There's this beautiful quote that I really love. It's what you love makes you who you are, not what loves you back. Which means you can love people even if they don't love you back. You can find appreciation, admiration, gratitude for other people, even if you had a falling out and you're not friends with them. That's part of the beauty of this Venus conjunct Uranus here in the third house of Gemini. This is about information. And Venus is about what you love, what you want, what you desire. Uranus is about a breakthrough. So there is some sort of breakthroughs happening around love, around how we view love, the information of love, of what love looks like. There's a lot going on there, so I hope you take the time for yourself to explore that area over the next week, the next couple of days. Now let's just get right into this full moon and kind of ignore everything else here, our stacked Aries and all the other nonsense that's going on. Let's get down to the simple aspects of what we're looking at. The Taurus energy and the Scorpio energy. So let's get into a little. Oops, wrong button. Here we go. Boop. Okay, so the little bit of mythology about what Scorpio is. Scorpio ruled by Pluto and Hades, the god, the lord of the underworld. Pluto and Hades, the lord of the underworld. And what the mythology is that Hades, the lord of the underworld, sees Persephone, one of the seven beautiful muses, and everything Persephone touches turns to gold. She touches a bush and flowers come out of it. She touches a tree and it blooms apples and pears and all those lovely things, okay? So this energy of Persephone, the lore, the mythology, is that everything that she touches blooms and blossoms. And she, it's like this Beauty and the Beast kind of a thing, where she finds a bit of attraction, this lord of the underworld, and he strikes a deal, and he takes her for 6 months to the underworld, and 6 months she gets to live up here. Now, when we strip away the lore, when we strip away the mythology, when we strip away the personifications, the anthropomorphizations of the story, we're just talking about the relationship of the sun and the earth. That's all we're talking about here. When the sun is in the northern hemisphere, we have spring and we have summer. When the sun moves to the southern hemisphere, this is when we experience autumn and winter. It's very simple. Now, when we have the stories, especially coming out of this 2,000-year cycle of Piscean belief, we believed that Hades or that this lord of the underworld, Pluto, Hades concept is a real thing, a real person. We can believe that this Persephone character is a real person, a real character. It's not. Okay, this is where we're undoing information in our mind. We might love the lore, we might love the mythology, but it's simply not truthful. We're just taking human characteristics and applying them to non-human things. So we are saying, this goddess touches everything and it blooms. It's like, no, the sun is just north of the hemisphere. The sun is north of the equator, so we have more light, which means things grow. Then the sun dips below the equator, the underworld, and things die. So here, now, with the sun in Taurus, This is a time to plant crops. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago in the Aries new moon. It's what are you doing? We all have to survive on this planet. And if we are not creating some sort of food for ourselves to survive, now I understand that not everybody's situation is the same. Not everybody has a lot of property. Some people just might have a windowsill. And this is still something that's like we're figuring out. How can we turn that windowsill into like a little garden of some sort? Can we make something that we can use to give to ourselves to survive? Okay, even if we can't, it's a good goal. It's a good goal to at least create something in this world that we can sustain ourselves with nutrients. You know, I mean, we're getting water pumped from the tap. There's nothing we can do there. There's not, anyway, you get that. So this is a time to garden. Now, 6 months from now, when the sun is going to be in Scorpio, what's going on? It's not a time to garden. It's a time to harvest, right? That's just simple, basic stuff. Astrology is complex, but it's really quite simple. What are you doing between the time to plant seeds and the time to harvest your crops? Because that other 6 months between when you harvest your crops and before you can plant seeds again is a completely different time of year with completely different circumstances, different opportunities. So this opportunity is, what are we doing for this 6 months, and how are we looking at this contrast between where things grow and bloom and blossom and we plant these seeds and they grow into something sustainable and nutritious for us, and in 6 months from now everything's going to die. And now we can look at this in the sense of the bigger picture of self. With all of our Aries energy, we have Mars in Aries, we have Mercury in Aries, we have Saturn in Aries, we have Neptune in Aries. Of course, Chiron and Eris are still in Aries as well, which are asteroids, and Eris is, how we deal with information, and Chiron is how we heal. Mercury is how we communicate, how we think. Mars is how we get that of which we love, want, and desire. Saturn is the father energy that says this is the structure and the order of things, and how are you being disciplined on yourself to get that of which you love, want, and desire? How are you being disciplined on yourself for that which you communicate? It is up to you. When you have a thought in your head and you share it with the outside world, you have to be accountable for those words and our emotions and our feelings and all that stuff. So there's a lot of this Aries energy that's like saying that life is kind of how you view it, how you see it. And it's like if you're frustrated with life and every day you're waking up, you're frustrated, if it's not working, if you're not happy, you got to switch the dialogue, right? It's just like if being frustrated with the world outside isn't bringing you joy, then you got to find out what brings you joy and then apply that to yourself. And then the outside world kind of seems to change, right? Now, there's certain things that are out of our control. The rain, the wind, the snow, change of seasons, growing old, right? These are all things that are out of our control. So we can only really control we can only have an effect on what is in our control. And our attitude, our mindset is a huge aspect of that. Is how are we perceiving the world? How are we perceiving when we're faced with adversary, when we're faced with hurdles and obstacles in our way? That's up to you. That's how you perceive them. But over the next 6 months here, we'll come back to the chart just to look at this for a moment. This is about planting crops. And we have these 6 months until these crops are going to die. So what are you going to do with your time? What are you planting right now in life? How are you planting? Are you right? So sometimes I see like we have a lot of people with a really negative mindset, like, oh, I'm going to plant, but it's not going to grow. It's like, well, you have to water it. You have to water it. And then you also have to be able to give it space. You can't just sit there with your hose on it all day long. There's a balance between everything. And as well, this watering our garden and communication are very similar things. It's very important, I think, during this full moon, especially with Mercury here conjunct Chiron and Eris. Eris, how we deal with information. Chiron is the wounded healer, which is we're learning new information and how to heal ourselves. So this all deals with information here, and it all points back to self. How you deal with information given to you, how you deal with being hurt, how you learn to how you learn to heal, how you communicate, and how you think. And that's over here with love, want, and desire, Uranus. And how we think, we can be thinking something wrong. And that's the beauty of Uranus. We can say, hey, the ground is solid. And then the Uranus energy says, well, until I make an earthquake, then the ground's not so solid after all, is it? Right? So some of these ideas that we think are concrete, Uranus comes through and just completely shifts it and destroys it in a sense. Now, Uranus being in Gemini, Mercury rules Gemini. Now, for our 3 personal planets, we have 3 outer planets that are a higher octave, okay? Uranus is a higher octave of Mercury, which is information, breakthroughs of information. Again, the straw that broke the camel's back. This camel can take a lot of weight. This desk can take a lot of weight. But if I put too much on it, the structure completely collapses. Venus is the lower octave. Neptune is the higher octave. Okay, so Venus is what you love, want, and desire, and that deals with physical and non-physical things. Neptune is the expansion of your love, your wants, and your desires. And now there's both sides. Aren't we thankful that these beautiful rose bushes have thorns? Aren't we so thankful that the thorn bushes have beautiful roses? Aren't we thankful that those thorn bushes have beautiful roses? It's a fun way to look at things. When we can kind of shift the perspective, we're grateful. There's a lot more thorns on my thorn bush outside than there are roses, but I'm acknowledging those beautiful roses. I'm setting my intention, my focus, and appreciation and gratitude toward the roses more than the thorns, but I acknowledge that those thorns exist and the contrast of everything. All right. So just as that contrast exists, when we're talking about Neptune and what we love, want, and desire, we can also be talking about uncertainties. I really love this person, but I don't know if they love me back. I really want that job, but I don't know if I'm going to be hired for it. What matters most is your desire for it. What matters most is that you love somebody. What matters most is that you have an appreciation or a love for a job or something that you really want to do. That is the feeling that we want to exacerbate and expand upon, as Jupiter is here in emotional Cancer. Let's come back and look at that real quick. Is it an expansion of emotions? And then we see here this little septile. It's a breakthrough. Right? Now, sometimes we can have confidence in things. We can be confident like, oh, I really like this person, but I don't know if they like me back, or there's no way they're going to like me. The odds are pretty good they've dated somebody uglier than you. It's a fun thing to think about. Odds are pretty good that if you really want that job, they really want somebody that really wants that job, right? So we have this opportunity for this misplaced confidence. We have a lot of confidence sometimes that's like, oh, I'm not going to be the thing. I'm not the right person. I'm not the right. And it's just like, all we have to do is shift. We have a lot of confidence in lack of confidence. And when we shift that confidence into saying, well, maybe I can do this. I can do this. The little engine that could. I think I can. I think I can. So there's a beauty in leaning into that of what you love, want, and desire, and having the kind of the breakthrough of letting go of what if it doesn't work out. Like, that doesn't really matter. Just focus on of what you love, want, and desire. And then when you cross the bridge, you'll figure out what's going on. But the most important thing is to be excited, to be passionate. Now, Mars is our planet of action. So Mercury is communication and thinking. Venus is love, wants, and desires. Now, Mars is our passion and how we get that of which we think about and that of which we love, want, and desire. And Pluto is the higher octave of Mars. So we're talking about action and active transformation. You see how those work together? And then now if we come back here, so Venus is ruled here by Taurus and Libra, and Venus is here in Gemini, connected with Uranus. Mercury, information, breakthrough of maybe this is a change too. It's like when we look at what's springing up and what's dying, what's coming alive and what's dying, we can look at fads. Fad, right? A fad. What is a fad? It's something that we might not really love or care about. It's something that the collective cares about. There's something that's being pushed in agenda, Labubus or Beanie Babies or Furbies or some stupid like that. Like they hold zero value. But for some reason, there's like this societal sweeping thing, like all the birds in the sky just move in one direction at the same time. This is Uranus and Venus here connected together in Gemini and Pluto. And it's like, why do we care about what other people are doing with life or the fads in life? Because, well, this is my money and I work really hard for this money. And is this going to have an emotional fulfillance for me, or is it just going to die, right? Is this Tamagotchi or Yamaguchi or whatever? Is this Beanie Baby? Is this Furby? Is this thing that I'm being led to believe that I really want? Is it going to change anything for me? Is it going to make me a better person? Is this some silly popularity contest that no one really wins at? You know, it's like funny when we look back in, high school or junior high or something like that to now. It's just like who was a nerd and who's popular and how that stuff changes. And it's like, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes the nerdy person was the bookworm that was studying all day, and the popular person was the sports person or the cheerleader and maybe now they're just involved in sports and then the person who's a nerdy person is a lawyer and doing all these great things. It's just like we have these misconceived judgments and labels that we want to put on people that don't last. They don't sustain, right? Everything dies. If you were a nerd, maybe you're the most popular person now. If you were the most popular person in school, maybe you're a nerd now, and just whatever. Like, these are kind of like funny terms, but it's like things change. So sometimes we get so stuck on a concept, we get stuck in an idea, we get stuck in a rut, right? Cows get stuck in a rut. We're not cows. Our sails are adjustable. It's not the wind blows and I can only go in this direction. No, it's like we can learn about astrology, we can learn about ourselves, we can learn about life, we can bring in new things and absorb information into the holes in our skull, our eyes, our ears, and our mouth, and learn something new that can change our minds, that can change our hearts. And then we can go about living our life in some sort of balance. So this is kind of where we're at right now. What balance are we bringing to what are we creating right now for the next 6 months that's going to eventually die, right? I'm planting a garden and it'll eventually die. However, there's honest work for me doing that. There's good energy of me putting my hands in the earth. I think there's something else with that. Let's chat about for a moment. When we see Scorpio energy, let me think here, 1983 to 99, I think Pluto was in Scorpio. Now, if that's you, 83 to 99, somewhere around there, Pluto was in Scorpio. Now, my mom, my parents' generation, they weren't really big into herbalism. They weren't big into that. It was like just petroleum-based pharmaceutical medicines. The rise of after this Pluto-Saturn conjunction here in 1982 and 83, when Pluto moved into Scorpio, it started sprouting out a bunch of herbalist babies, and the ladies some of them call themselves witches, like the whole witchy vibe, that whole group, right? If that's you, then there's like this information that's been coming from deep within your DNA that is remembering these old ways to heal, these old ways of herbs and these different plants that just, when I was a little kid, they just weren't around. This information wasn't out there. The herbs weren't out there. These natural remedies really didn't exist to how they do now. And we can be thankful that this higher octave of Mars, this Pluto here, active transformation through society, Pluto, right? So now we're getting a lot of this information here that's come from the depths. It was buried, It's like, oh, if you know about herbalism, if you know how to heal, you're a threat to the big pharmaceutical companies. You're a threat to somebody else who's trying to make money ruled by Venus and Taurus. So it's like there's a handful again of information that's breaking through, and there's an emotional need, to stick our head into the shadows and learn. Okay, not everything is just bright sunshine and butterflies and rainbows. We have to be able to go into the shadows. Part of that, there's this interesting thing I came across earlier this morning, and again, this is like information changing. We can talk about this when in like Western practices and theories, it's like we want to repel, we want to push away, we're going to breathe in peace, and we're going to exhale what's bad. Okay, now in I believe it's Chinese practice, it's exactly the opposite. Now remember, what you resist is what persists. So if you're just pushing away all the bad stuff in your life, I'm just going to breathe in peace, and I'm going to push away everything that's bad and negative. Okay, what you resist persists, and the more you're pushing something away, the more you're triggering your brain to say that this is wrong, this is bad, and I don't want it. Well, what's going to happen when you say this is wrong, this is bad, I don't want it? Well, you're going to find more of it. You're going to find more of that thing. So we have to be able to lean in. We have to lean into the shadow. We have to lean into some of the uncertainties. We have to lean into the pain. We have to lean into the suffering. So this practice, which has been a proven scientific method that works, is breathing in our pain and suffering, which belongs to us. There's no escaping these shadows in life. Anywhere there's light, there's going to be shadow, right? Where's the... we see it? There it is, right across my face right there. Anywhere there's light, there's going to be a shadow. So if we're breathing in, this pain and this suffering belongs to me. This belongs to my mind. It belongs to somewhere in my body. And I'm going to exhale the peace. Well, we're no longer running from our pain. We're no longer running from the suffering. We're no longer running from the bad, angry thing that's outside of self. We're embracing it. And when we can embrace these things, we can embrace the contrast, we can embrace these shadows of life. That's the elements of living. It's understanding that what we're planning now will die in 6 months, and it's what we do with our next 6 months. It's understanding that none of us are making it out of here alive. We all have an expiration date, and we don't know when that's going to be. Some of us have the luxury of living a long, very fruitful life. Some of us have a luxury of living a short life. We don't know when that's going to be. And we have a responsibility to be our best. Now, the sun shines its brightest all the time. It doesn't matter if there's a war happening down here on Earth. It doesn't matter if there's injustices happening down here on Earth. The sun is going to continuously shine its absolute brightest, unconditionally giving to humanity. And you have that energy inside of you. The harnessing the power of the sun. And it is a responsibility to make sure that we are shining our brightest every day, and that we're not allowing the outside influence of the world to dim our light. It is a responsibility. So how are we being responsible? And it's just like, I can't live my best life today because something that happened over there. I can't live my best today because these people over there. I can't live my best today because that person did that thing that I don't like. It doesn't make any sense. We have to change our minds. We have to shift our perspective. We have to take the needle off the record that's just and put on a new song. All right, my friends, I'm gonna come back to the chart for just a second here. We can view this, and if there's anything else here that's popping up. There's a lot of beautiful energy. A lot of beautiful energy. We have the ability to change our minds. We have the ability to plant seeds to make them grow. We don't have to get caught up in the fads of the world that are going to take our time, our money, and our resources that have some emotional impact on us. Or if you don't follow the trend, Were you going to be called uncool, unpopular? Does it matter? Do these things matter? Does it matter to you? Does it matter to my mind, to self? We have an expansion of emotions and a breakthrough of what we love, want, and desire, and how we view that of what we love, want, and desire. And the ability to find comfort into being able to love what doesn't love us back. That is a powerful one right there. My friends, I love you. I wish you enough. And a happy full mooning. We'll see you next time.